It was a chilly November afternoon in Chicago. The streets of Michigan Avenue were alive with the hum of the city. Tourists snapped photos, and locals hurried about their day, bundled up against the crisp autumn air. Among them, walking at his usual determined pace, was Donald Trump. Dressed in a long blue-black coat and his signature red tie, he was in town for a meeting but decided to take a walk back to his hotel to enjoy the energy of the city. As he passed a corner near Millennium Park, something made him stop. Sitting hunched against a building was a woman, her clothes old and worn, her face lined with exhaustion. In her trembling hands, she held a cardboard sign that read, "Veteran in Need. Please help." Donald Trump paused, his gaze lingering on the sign, then on the woman's weary eyes. Without hesitation, he stepped toward her, ignoring the curious glances from passers-by. "Ma'am," he said gently, "what's your name?" Startled, the woman looked up. She hadn't expected anyone to stop, let alone Donald Trump. Her voice wavered as she replied, "It's Teresa. Teresa Hensley." Donald knelt down to her level, concern etched on his face. "Teresa, are you a veteran?" "Yes, sir," she replied, sitting up straighter. "Served in the Army for 12 years. Got injured overseas, and well, things haven't been easy since." "Why are you out here?" Donald asked, his tone kind but firm. "Don't you have a place to stay?" Teresa's gaze dropped to the sidewalk. "Lost my apartment months ago. Couldn't keep up with the rent. I've been trying to get back on my feet, but it's hard." For a moment, Donald said nothing. He simply nodded, absorbing her words. Then he straightened up and reached into his pocket for his phone. "Teresa, stay right here," he said firmly. "We're going to fix this." He stepped a few feet away and dialed a number. His longtime assistant, Margaret, picked up on the first ring. "Margaret," Donald said briskly, "I need you to find the nearest hotel with availability and arrange for a doctor to meet us there." "It's urgent." "Right away, Mr. Trump," Margaret responded. Donald turned back to Teresa, who was watching him with cautious hope. "Help is on the way," he said. "But first, let's get you something warm to eat." He flagged down a food vendor nearby and bought her a steaming bowl of soup and a sandwich. Sitting beside her on the cold pavement, he watched as she ate slowly, her hands trembling. "Tell me about your life, Teresa," he said after a moment. She spoke softly but steadily about her time in the Army, the deployments that had taken her far from home, and the injury that had ended her career. She described how the transition to civilian life had been more difficult than she'd imagined and how she had ended up here, alone and struggling. A sleek black SUV pulled up to the curb minutes later. The driver stepped out and opened the door with a respectful nod. Donald helped Teresa to her feet. "This is for you," he said, guiding her toward the vehicle. "We're taking you somewhere safe." The SUV whisked them away to a nearby luxury hotel. Thanks to Margaret's quick coordination, the staff was already prepared. Teresa was greeted like a VIP and escorted to a spacious suite on the top floor. Inside, a hot shower, fresh clothes, and a warm bed awaited her. Shortly after, a doctor arrived to examine Teresa. He provided her with medicine and advice on how to regain her health. Throughout it all, Donald remained nearby, ensuring everything was handled smoothly. Meanwhile, Margaret had reached out to Veterans United Support Services, a nonprofit specializing in helping homeless veterans rebuild their lives. Within the hour, one of their representatives, a kind woman named Lisa, arrived at the hotel. Sitting beside Teresa, Lisa smiled warmly. "We're going to help you with housing, job training, and anything else you need. You're not alone anymore." Teresa's eyes filled with tears. She turned to Donald, who stood quietly in the corner, and said, "I don't know how to thank you." Donald stepped forward and placed a hand on her shoulder. "You don't need to thank me, Teresa. You earned this a long time ago." By the next morning, Teresa's life had taken a dramatic turn. Veterans United had found her temporary housing, and Donald's foundation pledged to cover her rent for the first year. Before he left, Donald handed her a check to help with immediate expenses. As he prepared to leave, Teresa stopped him. "Mr. Trump," she said, her voice steady now, "you've changed my life in ways I can't even describe." "Thank you." Donald smiled, a rare softness in his expression. You're going to do great things, Teresa. Just promise me one thing. Pay it forward someday. I will, she replied, her voice filled with newfound determination. As Donald stepped out of the hotel and back into the bustling streets of Chicago, he felt a deep sense of fulfillment. In a matter of hours, one life had been transformed. For Teresa Hensley, a future that once seemed hopeless was now filled with promise and opportunity. This is not just a story about a chance encounter, but a reminder of the power of kindness and compassion. A single act of generosity can create ripples of change, touching lives in ways we may never fully understand. Thank you for watching this story. If it touched your heart, please like this video, share it with your friends, and leave a comment below. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell for more inspiring stories like this one.